Good evening. On behalf of the Commissioners and staff, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you all to the December 12th, 2024 City of Roseville Planning Commission meeting. Please put all electronic devices on silent at this time. Agendas are available at the end of the staff table. And if you plan to speak at tonight's meeting, please complete a blue speaker card, which is located on the lectern right in front, and return it to a staff member. As a reminder, Planning Commission meetings are broadcast live and replayed throughout the week on Consolidated Communications and Comcast. I will now call the meeting to order. Lupe, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Brashears?
Here.
Commissioner Covington is absent, excused. Commissioner Jensen is absent, excused. Commissioner Randolph?
Here.
Commissioner Unidad?
Here.
Vice Chair Hagen-Jost?
Here.
And Chair Pryor.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lupe, please begin staff introductions.
Good evening, Commissioners. Lupe Nelson, Recording Secretary.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joe Speaker, Assistant City Attorney.
Good evening, Chair Pryor and Commissioners. Greg Bitter, Planning Manager.
Good evening, Chair Pryor and Commissioners. Derek Ogden, Senior Planner.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Scarlett Marr, Associate Planner.
And good evening, Commissioners. Matt Todd, Principal Engineer.
Thank you very much. The public comment period is a time for anyone who would like to address the Commission on any item not on tonight's agenda. When addressing the Commission, please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to address the Commission on any item not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I will close the public comment period. Next, we have the consent calendar, which consists of routine items that may be approved under one motion as recommended in the staff reports. However, each item may be considered separately upon a request by the audience, Planning Commission, or staff. Tonight's consent calendar consists of one item. Item 5.1, minutes from the October 10, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Is there anyone on the Commission or in the audience who would like to pull this item off the consent calendar for separate discussion? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as listed?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Unidad has made the motion and Vice Chair Hagen-Jost has seconded the motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Randolph?
Abstention.
Commissioner Brashears?
Yes.
Commissioner Unidad?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hagen-Jost?
Yes.
And Chair Pryor.
Yes. The motion is approved. Next, we have requests and presentations. Before we begin, I want to review the meeting procedures. First, we will hear the staff presentation. Then I will take questions from the Commission. Then I will open the public hearing. The applicant will make a presentation. Then I will open the public comment, and the public will have an opportunity to speak. Then I will close the public comment. If needed, the applicant will be given an opportunity to provide a rebuttal. Then I will close the public hearing. The Commission may then ask questions of staff. And finally, the Commission will consider this item and make a decision based on the information provided in the report from staff and the testimony presented during tonight's hearing. Item 6.1 is a request that the Planning Commission approve an administrative permit for a parking reduction for 1850 Douglas Boulevard. For the record, file number PL240992.
Chair Pryor, I am recusing myself due to a potential conflict of interest rising from a personal relationship with the tenant for this item.
Scarlett, may we have your presentation, please?
Yes. Good evening, Planning Commission. The item before you this evening is a parking reduction for the TJ Maxx Shopping Center. So the project site is located at 1850 Douglas Boulevard within the Douglas Sunrise Corridor specific plan. The site has a zoning designation of community commercial with a special area overlay, and the site is currently developed with one large multi-tenant building that spans the southern portion of the site, as well as 4 pad buildings closest to Douglas Boulevard. Currently, the center contains a mix of retail, personal services, and restaurants, as well as they all share the parking and circulation on-site. As I mentioned, the item before you this evening is a request for an administrative permit to allow a 13-space parking reduction for a new restaurant within the shopping center. For some background information, the project site was approved in 1987 by the Project Review Commission, which allowed for a center of approximately 127,000 square feet with a parking requirement of 536 spaces. Now, in May of 2007, the planning staff approved an administrative parking reduction for 44 parking spaces to allow Panera Bread to occupy Suite 310. Subsequently, in 2018, the Planning Commission approved a second administrative permit to allow 36-space parking reduction to accommodate 2 new restaurants within the shopping center. Now, throughout the years, several of the tenant spaces have been leased out by eating and drinking establishments, as well as personal services and retail, which has resulted in an increase in parking for the center. The site today provides a total of 518 spaces, and in order to accommodate the mix of uses as well as the proposed restaurant, the applicant is requesting an administrative permit to allow a 13-space parking reduction for a new restaurant to occupy Suite 300 as illustrated in red on the screen. So as part of the application submittal, the applicant did submit a technical memorandum prepared by Fair & Pierce, which is a transportation engineering consultant firm, which analyzed at the greatest parking demand for the uses throughout the entire center. Parking occupancy observations were conducted for the entire center in a span of several weeks during the most likely peak hours demand, as well as the most popular days as well. Now, as shown on the table on the screen, the study was broken down into 5 parking areas to make it easier to do the parking count, as well as to present the data found throughout the studies. Now, based on the parking analysis and the results of the parking study, parking area 3, which is closest to the proposed eating establishment suite, has sufficient available parking spaces to serve the new eating establishment within the center. Now, in addition to the parking utilization findings, the study also found that during the weekday peak times, parking area 3 has between 26 and 28 available parking spaces during the most popular times during the week as well as weekends. Based on the data collected and outlined in the parking study, there is sufficient parking spaces for the restaurant during the most busiest times of the day and during the evenings and weekend times. Additionally, the employee parking plan that was approved in 2018 by the Planning Commission does state that all employees should park at the back of the buildings to allow the most desirable parking spaces in front of those buildings for the patrons of the center. With the reciprocal parking agreement, as well as the employee parking plan and the conditions of approval as listed in this staff report, we believe that adequate parking is being provided and will be provided for the center and the new business. Early notification of the project was posted on the Roseville Coalition of Neighborhoods Association's website, as well as tonight's public hearing notice was mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the project site, posted on the Arcona website as well, and published in the Press Tribune. To date, no public comments have been received. Now, pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, the project is exempt from CEQA per Section 15305, as well as per Section 305 of the City of Roseville CEQA implementing procedures. Consistent with the exemption classification, the project does not result in any changes in land use or density and is therefore exempt. In conclusion, staff finds that the project is consistent with the zoning ordinance, the general plan, and the Douglas Sunrise Corridor specific plan. Therefore, we recommend that the Planning Commission adopt the 4 findings of fact and approve the administrative permit subject to the 4 conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation, but I am available to answer any questions, and a representative from Fair & Pierce is here who can answer questions on the parking study as well as the business operation plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scarlett. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff at this time? All right, I will now open the public hearing. I would like to invite the project representative for this item to address the commission. Is there a representative from Fair & Pierce?
Good evening, Commissioners. Fred Choa with Fair and Peers. Need my address as well, our business address here? No, okay. So we completed the parking study for the proposed restaurant space, and as Scarlett Mar presented the results, we identified that there is sufficient parking, especially in Area 3, which is to the west of the shopping center. Even with the recently opened Aqua Tots that is there, we still identified, and we actually did study the parking supply and demand both before Aqua Tots was there and after Aqua Tots was there. So with the vibrant of the shopping center, there is still sufficient parking spaces in that area to serve the proposed restaurant space. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, Commissioners, are there any questions for the project representative at this time? All right, thank you very much. You may be seated.
Thank you.
I will now open the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the Commission on this item? All right, seeing none, I will now close the public comment period. Commissioners, are there any additional questions or comments for the applicant? All right, I will now close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission adopt the 4 findings of fact and approve the administrative permit subject to the 4 conditions of approval.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Brashears has made the motion and Commissioner Randolph has seconded the motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brashears,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hagan-Jost,
Yes.
Commissioner Randolph,
Yes.
Chair Pryor.
Yes. The motion is approved. There is a 10-day appeal period for this item. Come back, Commissioner Unida. Next, we have item 6.2. It's a request that the Planning Commission approve a tree permit for 260 South Harding Boulevard for the record file number PL24-0890. Shelby, may we have your presentation, please?
Of course. Good evening, Chair Pryor and Commissioners. My name is Shelby Maples, Associate Planner, and I have a presentation for you on the Clear Channel Tree Permit. The project site is located at 260 South Harding in the Douglas Harding Corridor Specific Plan area. The site is mostly vacant with the exception of the Clear Channel billboard, as well as a seasonal Christmas tree lot and staging for construction equipment. The entitlement includes a tree permit to remove 2 valley oak trees that are 16 inches diameter at breast height and 12 inches diameter at breast height. The project also includes the removal of 3 non-protected trees. Here is the site plan for the project. As you can see, the trees are located at the southernmost point of the site. The site plan also shows the location of that billboard and the proximity of the trees to the residential homes. As a part of the project, the applicant provided an arborist report, justification, and mitigation plan for the removal of the trees. The arborist report shows that the trees are young and have an unbalanced structure, and as you can see in the photo, lean fairly heavily. In order to maintain clearance for the billboard, that would require continued maintenance that, according to the arborist, would disrupt the growth of the trees over time and affect their health. Additionally, the trees are crowded against the residential fencing and the freeway sound wall. As part of the project, mitigation will be provided consistent with the tree ordinance through the payment of an in lieu fee, and no other conflicts with the tree preservation ordinance were identified. Early project notification and public hearing notices were posted to the Arcona website, mailed to the neighbors and property owners within 300 feet. There were no comments received except for one inquiry about the plans. As part of the outreach done by the arborist, it was negotiated with a neighbor to remove an additional eucalyptus tree. The project is also subject to the California Environmental Quality Act, and as a result, an addendum to the original Roseville Digital Billboard project initial study was prepared. It was prepared to cover the minor technical changes and additions and did not identify any new or substantially more environmental impacts for the project. In conclusion, the project is consistent with the general plan, Douglas Harding Corridor Specific Plan, and the required findings for the tree permit can be made. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission consider the addendum as well as adopt the findings of fact and approve the tree permit subject to the conditions of approval. I'm available to answer any questions on this project.
Thank you very much, Shelby. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff at this time?
Chair,
Commissioner Rita.
I have a question with the staff. When we do the mitigation in lieu fee, do we include the non-protected trees as far as the DBH?
No, so only the protected trees have a mitigation fee associated with them.
I see. Thanks.
Commissioner Brashears, did you have a
No, I
question?
didn't have one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Actually, I do have a question. So the billboard was approved, it looks like at the beginning of 2022, only 2.5, 3 years down the road. I'm just wondering, at the time of this, that everything was approved, the trees weren't a problem, but now they are? I'm just curious. I don't have a problem with the removal of the trees. I'm just wondering why it's waited for 3 years.
Yeah, I think over time, we're the Clear Channel, who operates the billboards, are expecting there to be even more impact to visibility from the motorists along I-80 over time as the trees grow even taller. And so I think that's one of the main reasons why they wanted to eliminate them. Also, I think just the structure of them and the way that they're not in great shape was primarily the reasons why they wanted to remove them at this point.
Yeah.
I have a question. How far are the trees from the actual sign? Approximately distance. Do we know this?
There's probably about 150 feet.
I think that's
Give
a
or
fair
take.
estimate. I don't have an exact number.
I can look on the aerial and give you an idea. Hold on.
Looking at the aerial, and I can't see how they block the view of the sign in their current size, maybe.
I would say that you, and Clear Channel can maybe speak more to this, but given the speeds along I-80, you really need kind of a wide viewing angle when you're looking at those billboards. And so that's part of the reason, primarily looking at the visibility of the sign from people traveling eastbound on I-80. You really need kind of a long view shed to see the billboard and to recognize the advertisement. So, Clear Channel can speak more to that as well.
There's also a curvature in I-80 right at that point as well that has, as you're negotiating that curve to the northeast, just the location of the trees and the sign, it's just the angle is one of the reasons. I know that was one of the comments early on when this first came to us.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this commission already removed a lot of trees from that section of 80
For the Caltrans widening,
widening
correct.
a couple of years ago. So
Yeah, that would have been on the other side of what's now going to be the sound wall on the freeway side. And I just looked at the aerial with our scale, and Derek was right on the money. It's about as close as I can get. It's like 152 feet. So he's probably more accurate.
He's good at what he does.
okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Sure.
The staff? Okay, I will now open the public hearing. I would like to invite the project representative for this item to address the commission.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Eric Neese, Vice President of Real Estate for Clear Channel. One of the things you brought up is why didn't we do this a couple years ago? We don't like to take trees out. That's not something that we do. This is a partnership with the billboard for the city, and you're right, the curvature coming around, it is a very short read, and we wanted to try to make a go of it without taking the trees and doing that. The saleability of that site is very poor. It's because of the short read of it, and we're not getting a lot of revenue from it. In addition, the trees are in fairly poor shape, and being a good partner with our landlord, the city's landlord, Ms. Stevenson, we decided to go ahead and spend, hopefully with the permit, the money to remove them. And then in doing so, we outreached to all the residents that were there and had good conversations with them. And additionally, they convinced us to take one of their trees out too, so that's fine. But everyone was in good spirits, and I think everyone understands the trees are in kind of bad shape. It will help the reed, and we're happy to do the mitigation for that as well. We like to do that. So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right. Commissioners, are there any questions for the project representative at this time? All right. Thank you. You may be seated. I will now open the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Seeing none, I will now close the public comment period. Commissioners, are there any additional questions or comments for the applicant? I will now close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to, that we consider the addendum to the Roseville Digital Billboard Project, initial study and mitigated negative declaration, and adopt the 2 findings of fact and approve the tree permit subject to the 5 conditions of approval. And for the record, this is file PL 24-0890.
I second.
Vice Chair Hagenjus has made the motion and Commissioner Unidad has seconded the motion. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Vice Chair Hagenjos?
Yes.
Commissioner Unidad?
Yes.
Commissioner Brashears?
Yes.
Commissioner Randolph?
Yes.
And Chair Pryor.
No. The motion is approved. There is a 10-day appeal period for this item. We have item 6.3. This is a request that the Planning Commission approve a design review permit, tree permit, and tentative condominium map for 124 Center Street. For the record, file number PL 240110. Shelby, may we have your presentation, please?
Of course. I have a presentation for you for the proposal at 124 Center Street, we referred to as the Loeffler Apartments. The project site is located in the Atlantic Street Corridor Specific Plan at 124 Center Street. The parcel is approximately 0.69 acres in size with a zoning designation of multifamily residential with a special area overlay and a high-density residential land use. The property is surrounded by single-family residential properties but adjacent to commercial along Atlantic Street. The entitlements for the project include a design review permit, tree permit, and condominium map. The proposal includes 13 two-story units, 6 of which are one-bedroom units and 7 are three-bedroom units. The project also includes site amenities such as a parking area with 25 parking spaces, a community garden, picnic area, and landscaping. The tree permit for the project proposes the removal of one 15.5-inch oak tree and encroachment into the drip line of an off-site oak tree. And the condominium map will create individual airspace lots for each unit. Here's the site plan for the proposed project. The front doors of the units will face onto both Shearer and Center Streets, with additional access to the units provided in the parking area to the rear. Vehicular access to the site is provided from the alley, and that will mean that there's no new driveways on either Shearer or Center Street and to access those parking spaces. The 25 space requirement is consistent with the zoning ordinance, and the site also includes additional new landscaping. The site is consistent with the development standards for the Atlantic Street Corridor Plan, including the setbacks, which are determined by design review. So for reference, the units are about 10 feet from Center Street, 10 feet from Shearer Street, 10 feet from the alley, and 27 feet from the nearest property on Shearer. The proposed elevations are consistent with the design guidelines laid out in the Atlantic Street Corridor Plan, incorporating traditional architecture that's seen in the surrounding neighborhood with similar materials and pitched roof and coloring. The color was drawn from the surrounding neighborhood and it was revised per neighborhood feedback. The overall height of the building is 18.5 feet tall and is in scale with other two-story homes. I wanted to include this. It was a reference photo from the Atlantic Street Corridor Plan for the type of development that was envisioned for this area, and included the rendering of the proposed project, just to show that this was very much in line with the development that was proposed part of the corridor plan. For public outreach, early notification of the project was published on Arcona, and the public hearing notice was posted on Arcona as well as mailed to neighbors and property owners with 300 feet and published in the Press Tribune. The project also held a neighborhood meeting in September of this year. There were 7 neighbors that attended the meeting, and concerns primarily included traffic, parking availability, how the site would affect emergency access to the neighborhood, the site history, and soil condition. And these current concerns were discussed with the neighborhood and staff. The elevations were generally positively received, including that revision to the painting scheme was completed per the neighbor request. I also wanted to note that following the publication of the staff report, I did receive one call from a neighbor that reiterated the concerns about traffic and also had a concern about the number of units. The project was considered statutorily exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15182, which exempts residential projects implementing specific plans, as it is consistent with the specific plan. In conclusion, the project is consistent with the general plan, Atlantic Street Corridor Plan, zoning ordinance, and community design guidelines, and the required findings for the design review permit, tree permit, and tentative condominium map can be made. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the findings of fact and take the actions listed on the slide. Thank you, and I am available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Shelby. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff at this time?
Could you help me out in terms of just understanding the 15% encroachment?
Absolutely.
Just kind of explain that a little bit.
Of course. So when we determine encroachment for an oak tree, we're looking at the drip line, which is basically the radius of the longest limb of the tree. So the tree is located off-site, but the pavement for the parking area will encroach into the drip line of that tree. So we make sure that the trees are preserved through our processes consistent with the tree ordinance.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I will now open the public hearing. I would like to invite the project representative for this item to address the commission.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Andrew Doggenbaugh. I am the representative for this project. Just as Shelby explained, we have worked very closely with planning and taken the neighborhood's comments and tried to do our best to address them. We did have our neighborhood meeting a couple months ago and did our best to address their concerns. I am available to answer any further questions from the neighborhood or the commission.
All right, thank you very much. Could you hold on a moment? Commissioners, are there any questions for the project representative at this time? No questions? Okay, thank you. You may be seated. I will now open the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item?
Commissioners, this is John Freitas, a resident of Roseville. I don't know if we're allowed to engage in a Q&A here, but I have assumptions when I hear the words tree removal. And I think of that as the disposal of the tree. And I hope I'm wrong, because the removal of a tree can be done in a couple of hours, but the replacement of that tree takes years. Can it be considered from here on forward that when we have or hear of a developer wanting to remove a tree, that it's asked, have they considered the removal and relocation of the tree? Is there land use within Roseville that can use this tree? They can move trees 50 feet tall with these significant equipment that just come, you see them in orchards, preserve the tree and relocate it. So I don't know if removal is inclusive of relocation of the tree, but it is a tragedy when I hear a single tree being taken out. Because again, especially an oak tree, 18 inches wide, how many decades did it take to get there? And then we're going to take it away. And how many decades will it take to replace it? But with modern equipment, they can take the tree out with care, cranes, and move it and keep it. So I guess I can't hear from you guys. I'm just expressing my thoughts and things to think about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to address the commission?
Just come on up to the podium. Just come on up to the microphone.
My name is Diana Chavez, and I live at 902 Sheriff Street, which will be kitty corner to where the lofts are going to be. And I've lived there for 54 years. And I'm okay with them building single-family homes. That would be nice to see, instead of seeing that vacant lot there. When we first moved in there, AAA had their towing service there. Then after that, there was people who would rent that space, like Kenny Jackson Construction would put their equipment back there, and then Marshall at the engine shop, and so on. So it's been vacant, no problem. The biggest problem I have was with the parking. In the area where we live, you either go in Center or you go in East. We have a light on Center, being that the high school is right across the street. And on East Street, you can only make a right off of Atlantic because there is, the traffic is so bad that you can't make a left on busy days going to school and stuff. So my concern is, in case of emergency, there's only one way out, and that's where the light is. So if you're going to have all these lofts, they're going to go first. Where am I going to go? All the way to the other end, where a lot of the other seniors that live around us going to get out as an emergency out. At that last meeting, they said that the traffic wouldn't be as bad because he said that most of the people in the 3 bedrooms would probably be working at home. How does he know that? And then the other problem is the high school kids park there's not enough parking at the high school, so they'll park on Center, and they will be in front of those lofts. If he was to go there during the week on school hours, he would see that the parking in front is just, kids, so that's my biggest concern, trying to get out of there, an emergency, fire department. We have beautiful houses up the hill on Center being built that are beautiful. I don't think that the lofts is going to make our neighborhood better. It's going to kind of be like out of place, You go down and you have all these big buildings, and it's not, Anyway, that's my complaint, So that's it.
Thank you very much. Right, anybody else from the public? Okay, I will now close the public comment period. Commissioners, are there any additional questions or comments for the applicant? I have a question, if I could ask staff to possibly address the tree relocation suggestion and also traffic for this project.
I can address the tree. So according to the arborist report, that particular oak tree that's being removed is pressed up against a corrugated metal fence as well as encroaching into power lines. So while relocation is something that is discussed in the tree ordinance, that wasn't proposed as part of this project, partially because of the condition of the tree.
Also, I'd like to add on to what Shelby says, just in general, when we look at these tree permits, it's not just the planning staff that looks at this. We have an urban forester, an arborist, a certified arborist that works for the city, and so we consult with Mr. Newman on these tree removal projects all the time. I mean, this isn't a new issue that's come before you, and we obviously the first thing we try and do is retain as many trees as possible. We always, you'll see, you've seen the arborist report where we're looking at what condition they're in, and if it's a very healthy tree, that's the first thing we do because. I think Chair Pryor probably knows as well as anybody, but if you're relocating a tree, the better the health, the higher success rate you would have on relocating it. Trying to relocate a tree in poor health probably isn't worthwhile. And our urban forestry division does use the mitigation fees to do replantings all over the city, all over our open space, all over the city. So it's an opportunity to get new tree plantings in parts of the city that are going to be open space in perpetuity, and we'll never have to worry about coming back. And so we try and keep that canopy, the overall canopy percentage, by putting them in locations that aren't going to be encroached upon by development. So it's kind of a balance. It's a balancing act, is the way the whole policy was originally drafted up. So I just thought that a bigger picture on not just this particular tree in this particular project, but obviously you've heard two tree removals already tonight, so it's a little bit bigger issue.
All right, thank you. Also the traffic, if I could ask about the traffic and emergency access.
So as far as the emergency access for the area, I mean, as she had stated, there are two street connections into Atlantic. One is signalized at Center and Tiger with Atlantic Street, and the other one at East is still have full turn movements. But I could understand that at certain times of the day, if the traffic's heavy, that might be difficult to make a left out. During emergency circumstances, though, we'll have emergency personnel out there to help direct flow of traffic, and they will coordinate that so that the residents can get out of that area.
Could you also address the parking issue?
I can take a shot at addressing the parking issue, Chair Pryor. Basically, they will be providing parking per our ordinance, so they'll be providing 1.5 spaces per 1-bedroom unit and 2 spaces per the 3-bedroom unit. So that's a total of 25 spaces, including 2 guest spaces. And they do provide some covered parking as well in the back, so we anticipate that most of the residents would want to use that covered parking first for shade and whatnot. So they are meeting the code in terms of parking. But just like any other project, if there's overflow, they would use the public street to park on.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Are there any other questions, comments? All right.
Chair Pryor, could I,
Yes.
I'm sorry to do this, but I want to jump in one other thing. On the emergency access point, I also want to make it clear, because this is also important. Matt definitely hit it on the traffic access. But our fire department reviews all these projects, so they're very active in project review and looking at all of that and looking at the emergency access. That's why you'll see some subdivisions that we bring before you have emergency vehicle access points in addition to the driveways, because they have very rigorous standards that they require, because it's their job to make sure they can get to an emergency and they can get people out of these areas if there is, if there was an accident at one of these streets, they need to be able to still get into the neighborhood. And so they review these projects pretty, with a lot of scrutiny to make sure that they're convinced they can get their equipment and personnel onto a site if there's an emergency.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
And I just wanted to note or comment, maybe this does have a land use designation of high-density residential. And so for some time, this has been, I'm assuming, has been that the use that's being proposed fits within what the land use designation is for that land.
I would say that based on the corridor plan that was approved in 2022, this is exactly what we were hoping for to see on this site. I mean, almost, the design, the applicants did a great job matching the design. And all of these same comments came up because in the corridor plan, this site was redesignated from commercial to the high-density residential, and there was purpose behind it. And it was, there was, maybe even more comments about parking and how it was going to work out. I think what really hit it for us is when we were able to come up with a design and finalize the design where all the access is off that alley and the parking field, there are no driveways, as Shelby mentioned, on Shearer or Center. So when someone pulls out of there, the odds that they pull in and go through the neighborhood are low. They're probably, if they're leaving the neighborhood, they're going to hit that signal. So we're hoping, obviously, the city doesn't control when and where people park on public streets. I mean, people park where it's convenient. And and available. I mean, that's just human nature. But the way this site has been designed, it's designed to focus that parking in the back, focus it on the alley, and try and get all that circulation so that it's as minimal impact on the neighborhood as possible.
All right, thank you very much. I will now close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Chair, I'll make a motion on this one. For the record, this will be for PL 24-00110, and this is to adopt the 4 findings of facts and approve the design review permit subject to the 67 conditions, adopt the 2 findings of facts, approve the tree permit, and adopt the 3 findings of facts and approve the tentative mappings as written.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Commissioner Randolph has made the motion and Commissioner Unidad has seconded the motion. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Unidad,
Yes.
Commissioner Randolph,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hagan-Jost, Commissioner Brashears,
Yes.
and Chair Pryor.
Yes. The motion is approved. There is a 10-day appeal period for this item. Next on the agenda is Commissioner Staff Report. Are there any reports from staff?
A couple of quick items for you. The first is, first I was surprised that our last meeting was October. It doesn't seem that long ago, but since our last meeting, the City Council on November 6th, they did approve the WB 42 rezone application, the West Park rezone application at West Park and Pleasant Grove. So they approved all the entitlements for that, so that land use change and rezone is going forward. We currently have 4 items teed up for January 9th, so we're going to hit you guys right off the bat in the new year with I don't know if it'll be a packed agenda because I think there's a few consent items that we need to get cleared off the books on that meeting. And the last thing I would say is have a happy holiday, and I hope you guys have time off, and we'll see you in 2025.
Greg?
Yeah, I know.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission? No? All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Make motion.
Second.
Brashears has made the motion and Commissioner Randolph has seconded the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much for attending and participating.
One more thing.